forward. And you guys keep an eye on the chat in case anyone is communicating with you guys in the chat. So welcome everybody to this Spring Rights Literary Festival event. Thank you so much for being here. I am Robin Schwartz. I'm the Community Arts Partnership Program and Grant Director, and we are in Ithaca, New York, and serve Tompkins County. The Spring Rights Literary Festival is one of 6 annual events that we have. We also have a gallery, and we have 6 grant programs for Tompkins County artists and not-for-profits doing arts events. Next up is a grant called the Creative Recovery Fund grant. It is due on June 22nd, and I encourage you to go to our website, and I'm going to put the URL to the website in the chat when I finish talking, and check out our grants. They are for Tompkins County artists. They are for not-for-profits doing arts events in Tompkins County. I will put the link to springrights.org in the chat. There are over 15 more events and workshops, and I hope you can come to many of them. I'm not exaggerating when I say every event so far has been inspiring and touching and exceeded expectations. I know the term Zoom fatigue is out there, but I really love the fact that we could get together so easily without fear of infection. And we often get people from all over the world in these events. I know someone is here from Oregon, so that's pretty cool. I'm going to also include a donation link. All of Spring Rights events are free. And so like every single not-for-profit in the whole wide world, we must continually ask for donations. So if you're motivated to do that, we would really appreciate it. So we're going to keep everyone on mute. Please use the chat heavily for questions and comments. It's the way we see engagement in a Zoom event like this one. So Zoom chatting is most welcome. And my joke is that I tell you that the bathrooms are down the hall. But I know so many of you have heard this speech a number of times already. I'm going to send everyone who attended a Spring Rights event a really short multiple choice Google survey in about a month. If you can fill it out, that'd be amazing, because what I'm going to ask you is how you heard about the events and how you chose the events that you went to. So that will help us know where to spend money next year and where not to spend money next year. And then if we spend less money because we find out it was all word of mouth, then we'll have more money to give to the artists. So when you see that survey in mid-June, that's what it is. I'd like to thank our wonderful Spring Rights sponsors, Ithaca College, Wegmans, M&T Bank, CFCU Community Credit Union, the Odyssey Bookstore, and the Ithaca Marriott. We receive grant support from New York State Council on the Arts, Poets and Writers, and Tompkins County Tourism. Our media sponsors are Ithaca Voice, WITH Radio, and WSKG. And now we begin. And I'm going to turn the camera over to KP right now. And there you go.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Hello, everyone. Good evening. It's great to see you. Today, I'm opening up the Digging Deep Within Myself to Find My Neighbor, a discussion about individual creativity and community. And specifically today, I'm bringing on 4 panelists to help me be able to bring into conversation what it means to be a creative across multiple art forms, across multiple art paths, and how we actually use our creativity to create within the community. So I'm actually bringing on my panelists now to be able to briefly give their intro, and we'll start with Michael and to send it around.
Hi, my name is Mikal McKay, but I go by Michelangelo, that's my pen name. I'm a senior at Binghamton University, and my art that I do is poetry and spoken word.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Parker. I'm a Activism. I'm a host. I'm a poet, spoken word artist. I curate events. I'm also the founder of Voices of Black Power.
So KP, were you using that microphone? Because it's hard to hear you, Sabrina.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah,
Just pronuncio a lot louder.
okay, I'm sorry. So yes, I'm Sabrina Parker. Is that
Oh, yeah.
better? Okay, yeah. So I'm Sabrina Parker. I go by Phonetic Wisdom. I'm a poet, a spoken word artist, a lyricist. I host events, curate events. The founder of the Black Women's Empowerment Organization. So I do quite a few things.
We're continuing to have sound problems with that. Did you hear the difference at your end? Did you guys, like Ben and Nia, where you had?
The mic's actually not connected. You have to go into the sound options and select the USB microphone if that's connected to a USB source. But if that's not connected to USB source, I want to say it makes an awesome prop. I brought my own microphone. I'll be using this as my microphone today to look a little more official. Everyone, I invite you to bring your own prop microphones. There's lots of podcasters who do this today. Seriously, go get a prop. But in order to connect that particular microphone, go into your sound preferences and make sure that you select the USB source. I have all of that set up myself for different events.
It might be better right now if you just use the computer. I hear you better when you're not using that microphone, and it may be because it's actually muffling you instead of letting us hear you.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to just enunciate, try to talk a little bit louder. Are we good?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I apologize for the technical issues, everyone. We're gonna start again.
So I'll reintroduce myself. My name is Michael, go by Michelangelo, senior at Binghamton University, and the art that I provide is poetry, spoken word, artistry.
Hey y'all, I'm Sabrina Parker. I go by Phonetic Wisdom. I do poetry, spoken word. I'm a lyricist. I host events, curate events. I'm the founder of a Black Women's Women Empowerment Organization.
Ben, would you like to continue?
What's up, everybody? I'm Ben Ortiz, aka DJ Hamid. I work at the Cornell University Library with the Hip Hop Archives. I also, as my name would suggest, am a DJ, and that takes me in different directions in terms of event planning, one of which happens to be podcasting. So it's not just playing music for people, it's talking about, thank you, Jenny, for throwing up my most recent podcast. There's another one, I'll put the link in there also. One of our attendees here is one of the hosts of that other show that I produce. So do I pass it off to the next person?
Yes.
I'm looking at Dr. Nia Nunn to my right here. I'm gonna pass it over.
You're up there, over there, Ben. I
It's
love
all
it.
relative.
It's an honor to have been invited. Thank you so much. Such a joy. It's been a joy to connect with you, KP, and Michael and Sabrina. It's nice to meet you. Ben and I go way back. In fact, Ben, check that out, 3 days. I have seen you in a row. And so I'm super excited. We've just been at a couple events more recently out in the community together. So it's a joy to literally be in a space where we get to honor that and be explicit. So again, my name is Dr. Nia Nunn, and I am a professor at Ithaca College. I have the glorious responsibility of preparing teachers for the world, and particularly amazing ones for Ithaca when I spot them. And let's see, my art, I would say, first is teaching. Teaching ends up being a mosaic of multiple forms of art. For me, I grew up dancing, doing a lot of choreography, but I would say that central to my art has been writing, poetry, and there's always some movement in the performance, but ultimately spoken word. I run performing arts programming for youth, for little people. Adults are great, but those are my favorite human beings. I truly, truly honor what's possible with young people. And so writing curriculum is my joy and breath. It's quite the passion. So again, thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we were able to get a nice brief intro with our panelists. I am your host, KP. I'm also known as Kiki. My name is Kyara Perkins. I am also a Binghamton senior, a Binghamton University senior. I'm a Bronx native, so my passions reside in building the community within my neighborhood, but also, you know, reaching out further than just my neighborhood. Hence why this panel is so dear to my heart, because we have the ability to bring together two great community leaders that are doing awesome things in Ithaca, New York. And then of course we have our other panelists like myself as well included, who are also doing great works here in downstate New York. So it's so great to have you guys on. What brings me to actually bring you all together as well is that I'm also a writer. I consider myself to be a creative, but I am a writer and I do poetry. I do rapping. I actually get into visual arts. I'm really big into curating and art exhibit, curatory events as well, actually. But I've also put together events in the community back in Bronx to help creatives like ourselves to network and actually tackle and utilize spaces like where we're at right now, specifically the Masterpiece Showroom. This is the beautiful art behind us, actually. And this space is a space that's open to the community to help us be able to create, come together, collaborate, congregate. You know, it's really important for us to be able to hone in on the creative spaces. So I just really am so happy for you all to be here right now in this conversation. So we're really just gonna dive right into it. So I wanted to kind of start with Michael. So Michael and I actually go to Binghamton together. So we actually met at an event that was dedicated towards highlighting a series of different things, actually. But the thing that allowed us to come together was coming to the Vanguard. It was the Black exhibit, the Black Museum, the Black Museum with Binghamton University. And it was actually bringing together a series of different creatives, African-American creatives on campus to be able to showcase our talents. So I kind of wanted to ask you, like, let's just dive right into it. Like, how would you describe your art and how you connect with the community using it?
I feel like I use my poetry and my spoken word artistry a lot to be vulnerable in myself. You know, like I'm a very quiet person. I don't really talk a lot. I don't really go to a lot of social settings. However, when I dive into my art, that fear and that fear of being vulnerable kind of just disappears, and the art makes me stronger. You know, and so I kind of just wanted to share that vulnerability, and I wanted to share that courage with everyone else. And so that's kind of how I identify with my art.
So, like, what would you say is probably the biggest challenge when you utilize like that vulnerability? Is that challenging at times?
Very challenging, because a lot of times we think our emotions are fact, you know, like all the time. You know, like when we're angry, then we think that we're an angry person, or when we're sad, we think we're a sad person. And so, you know, like writing, you know, before writing poetry, it's like you have to journal and you have to write down all your feelings, you have to write down all your experiences. Yeah, just to say, like, journaling is a very good use of writing to like very better yourself and to really understand yourself too. And so I think like the struggle is to, to not lie to myself, to really be true and to use my words to actually describe how I'm feeling. Because if I'm by myself, then I can be truthful with myself. I can say this, that, and the third. But if I'm speaking spoken word in front of a crowd, then I can like take some things out and put that strong image in front of everybody, and that kind of takes away from the art, that takes away from the vulnerability, which is the foundation of the art. So I think the challenge is being truthful to myself and being truthful with all the emotions that I feel.
I love that you say that, because that kind of allows us to dive bring the conversation into another realm. And I think that, like Sabrina, some of the it's a lot of the work, and we've talked about this so many, especially in our live, we talked about how intentional you have to be with your creative process. And a lot of the events that you curate and the city specifically are very deep into the intentions behind it. So can you speak to how you utilize your creativity to add the intentionality behind this, that's needed?
It's fascinating. It's honestly an intuitive process for me. Like, I don't do it unless I'm feeling it. And if I'm not feeling it, then I'm not supposed to do it. So I don't do many events, but I feel like
that.
I don't know, being an artist, it was liberating, but also a lot of pressure because people always thought I was great. And I'm like, I just thought. And I'm like, nah, that's love. I appreciate being able to just, like you said, you're being vulnerable, and people need that because people are afraid of being themselves.
Yeah.
And it's not a crime, it's not uncommon, but when you can be yourself, that inspires another person to be themselves. And so when I'm not I do aspire to give back to artists monetarily, but because I don't have that capability, in the way that I would desire to, I could art. Okay, I can offer you this.
I love
in exchange for what I'm asking, because you have something to offer just for the God.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So it's seeing where people fit into the bigger picture for me. That's always been very natural. If I see what your gift and your talent is, I'm not mad at that. Here's where you can operate to expand yourself and expand mine. And so I don't pick people to be in my events or to partake with me if I don't feel something about them that they're called to do this. Because I feel called to do it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it's just it's not even.
Yeah. Right.
Whatever the spirit wants to do, I'll let the spirit.
I love that. Yes.
Excuse me, is there any way that Sabrina could lean closer toward the mic and the computer? Because it's still really difficult for us to hear.
Yeah, just catty corner maybe.
Thank you.
Awesome. Can you hear well? Okay.
We can hear you, and Michael's lower and Sabrina's even lower. So the microphone's turned toward you. You might have to turn it toward her when she's talking.
Awesome. Okay. Can you hear? All right.
Is that better?
It is?
Okay.
Okay, great. So I kind of want, okay, so we're able to kind of dive in, and these are, more so how we, and I really want to actually highlight the fact that in this discussion, we also have the ability to kind of build off of the diversity within execution of creativity, because Ben and Dr. Nia are actually in upstate in Ithaca. So to kind of, not switch the gears, but like kind of open up the floor for you all, I kind of want to dive into Ben. I'm sorry, Dr. Thea, but Ben, because I feel like this is the perfect opportunity to kind of build off of intentionality as far as, because you said the vibe almost, right? It's like the frequency. And I feel like now, then this is kind of where like, I would love to open up the floor and ask you, how do you utilize your artistic forms to build in a community? Because you're a DJ and everybody knows the role that a DJ plays, and just someone who is able to man the crowd almost. You're kind of like responsible for that in a sense. So if you could kind of speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you for that question. You know, one thing I always like to do when I'm giving talks is not assume everybody knows the role of a DJ. You know, it's one of those things that I think as an educator, and Dr. Nia will correct me if I'm wrong as the actual education expert in here. Listen, if you make assumptions about the understanding or the comprehension level of everyone in the audience, it's likely someone's going to get left in the dust or something's going to go over somebody's head. So I think speaking to an individual out there who may not actually know what a DJ does, I think it's important to know that selecting sounds to create a tapestry, a sonic tapestry for a particular purpose, whether it's an event, whether it's for a recording that is intended to be listened to over and over, whether it's for something like shopping music at a department store. It's done with some intentionality. It's done with a sense of, I want to evoke this particular response from the audience. And that's when there is a very specific intent. Yesterday, one of the events that I did that Dr. Nia mentioned is I DJ'd for a children's dance concert at the Southside Community Center, where Dr. Nia is, I want to say, president of the board. She'll correct me on the terms later. I used to be on this board as well many years ago. And there were pre-selected songs for the performance numbers. But after that, it was just a community gathering. There was food available, children, parents, people who hadn't seen one another in a long time, getting together outside in the park, which is a situation as old as the hills, right? So part of my drive in that moment for the 2 hours or so that I was just playing music for people after the performances. Number one is to create a particular mood and an uplifting, positive mood that is appropriate for all ages, somewhat interesting and accessible, and either familiar or interestingly, wow, I haven't heard that before, to the whole crowd. The other drive, though, is that I can share my musical point of view, my creative point of view, stuff that I may know that you, the audience, may not know. Actually, that's the biggest reason that I became a DJ, is because I like to share what I happen to know and like. And it's not so much a, I know more than you, I have better taste than you. It's not about that. It is just a sharing. Here's what I like, check it out. And that goes way back to before I was a professional DJ and just being a music head. Dr. Jennifer Stover, who's with us today, happens to be one of those individuals that I would much prefer to listen to her talk to me about music she knows and likes than to tell her what I like. And why is that? Because I look at her like, wow, you have probably forgotten more about music than I've ever even known. She's amazing. She's one of those people I love to refer to as a musical influence to me and an inspiration. I think that's a beautiful thing. So the whole thing to me is about sharing. Another thing I want to just briefly mention as an art, a discussion within the artist's circle, if you will. I happen to be a painter also. I was a painting major in college. We would always have, discussions about art. What's it for? What's it about? Why do you make art? Why do you do this? So it dovetails quite nicely with this discussion itself, digging deep within yourself. It wasn't always about finding your neighbor, though. It wasn't always about community. I am surprised, and I remain surprised at how many artists, be they visual, verbal, musical, I am surprised at how many people do not make their art for anyone but themselves. That's not to invalidate what they do. It's not to invalidate the reasons they make their art. But for me, it has always been with the intent to show other people. And that's kind of a, are you this kind or that kind of artist? Not better, not worse. I just think that it's worth kind of pointing that out. And I think that most DJs will land down on the side of it's for other people. Although there are the proverbial bedroom DJs who really just make music for themselves. Bedroom. So whatever, I could feel myself rambling, and that's the point at which I know I need to click the mute button and turn it over to the next panel.
Oh man, I love that point that you actually made towards the end. Like we don't create anymore. Like, it can be understood like that. But I feel like there has something that it has a lot to do with there's a growing collectivism that's like developing in the community. So I say that because often there's I've been a part of a lot of events that are curated to help the collective to, in unison, be able to tackle and break, target their creative process. So that could come from, I feel like, I totally get what you're saying, but I feel like that comes from this gradual evolution of community and the role that just the youth are playing. So I love that you actually say that. But that is a very valid point, because I think about that when I paint. I don't really talk about my paintings either, but I love doing landscape, like water and those type of views is like, but just like you said, create for yourself. That's a little bit different. I think that's where the writing comes in, because the process that we go through as writers, and that's just the name of just to name one type of artist, or creative, but the writing is something I feel like it definitely does happen for personal reasons. But I think it has everything to do with just the types of art we're talking about. So that's a great point that you make, Brian. Dr. Nia, I kind of wanted to, and this actually nicely rolls into this segment, this part that I kind of wanted to share and kind of dive into with Dr. Nia. So you share great efforts in the community center, in the community center down in the Southside, right? And you do a lot of working with you said girl circles.
Yeah, so that was one element, right?
Yeah,
Sister
one
circles
element
that you listened to earlier as part of it. And I can speak to that. But no, go on with finishing your question. But I'm excited that you highlighted the sister circles.
Yes, absolutely. And I highlight that because that speaks to I feel like, and personally, it speaks to just the power of like when you are creating, and how it can go from a personal endeavor, a personal want, like a personal desire, and then you naturally meet other people that share it, and now you guys want to come together as a collaborate, like somewhat what me and Sabrina do a lot, so that it turns into being relevant in community. So I kind of wanted to, let you dive into, because you are an educator as well as, doing all the work that you do in the community center. So I kind of wanted you to highlight that.
Sure, I'd be glad to. As I listen, I appreciate so much just honoring everyone sharing, and it's so beautiful to hear people recognize their values so explicitly. That brings me joy, and particularly with us. And so I will start by saying, I like to describe myself, I'm gonna look at Robin giggling a little bit. I describe myself as an artivist in a variety of ways, right? Like there's this, all of my art is, is embedded in, yes, it's the personal, it's the political, it's all of that, but just the activism, right? Or art ends up being a beautiful way of expressing or contributing to some major social transformation that's in need. But then to bring it home, I would first like to say that art, colors, song, it just reminds me of like beautiful ways of tapping into our different learning styles too, if that makes sense. So for me, I'm such a visual learner, but also a person who's like executive functioning is all over the place, but that's also a part of the beauty of my art is that. But how I utilize colors, or how my father as a child would use song to help me like remember stuff. Everything was turned into a song. Everything had a hook or a rhyme or a call and a response, and I was also simultaneously learning the cultural element associated with what he was teaching me, or how I was utilizing the skills, the methodology. So much of all of this is then infused in the curriculum I create for CUMEP, the Community Unity Music Education Program, or the other work around Black Girl Alchemists, which you heard about in terms of the college level work, but then there are also some very young people. And so I think through Southside Community Center, as well as Ithaca College, next year I'll be 10 years that I have been on the faculty at Ithaca College. And before that at Beverly J. Martin. But I bring all of that up just to say that, art provides this opportunity, especially as a Black woman, to be like unapologetically specific, right? Like I was excited to hear that an opportunity for like Black Museum, is that what you called it? Like really that intentional, explicit, bringing you all together to honor one another. And for me, art is that, right? So it ends up being related to healing, related to research, and all of those, like, the transformative needs. So I find that, it ends up being glorious when you just give people different opportunities to recognize their value and to be explicit. So to bring Ben back in, these last 2 days that we've seen each other were actually pretty historic here in Ithaca, right? So on Friday, he's DJing at an event and I'm at one of probably 3 or 4 women and several hundred members of Alpha Phi Alpha, right? Mm-hmm. And so we were having exposure to a very historic event. And for those who don't know, Alpha Phi Alpha is the first Black fraternity. And it was founded here in Ithaca. And so in 1908. And so learning about the history of their journey and trying to establish a place, right? A sense of belonging, a space that's explicit for them, You know, we had glorious exposure to that making. Yesterday was Miss Harmony Malone, my little sister. She's almost 30, but she has been an incredible teacher since she was 14 years old. And I, along with many others, have contributed to nurturing her just like incredible brilliance and giving her space to just exercise all of that. Well, yesterday she put a whole show together, right, that Ben served as the DJ of. She's on her way to Hawaii. She has helped so many young people fall in love with themselves, right? So I just say all of that to say that for me, art is also individual and collective, largely collective, but just being able to witness like individuals navigate and sort of demand space around their value. And so it sounds like the Black Museum or even some of the events that I talked about that Ben and I have attended, art is like one of the most healing and transformative methods or options for our people, more specifically. So I'm grateful that you brought us together to breathe out, particularly the communal element. And so I say all of that to say, being specific is so beautiful and transformative. So thanks again for inviting us.
Yes, yes, yes.
I can actually piggyback off that. Just one additional thing that hasn't yet been mentioned. Well, first of all, I could say a lot more about the Alpha event and, you know, thinking about Sonicscapes for that as well. It was, you know, it's interesting to just have 100 men, which is usually frowned upon in a nightclub context, in a straight context, that is. The old adage in the DJ world has to do with there needs to be a higher, like a 60-40 breakdown women to men in order to get men to come to the nightclub. Again, this is in a straight context, which obviously is very different in other contexts. But that was the first time that I've ever DJ'd anything other than a breakdance battle, where it was a vast majority of just men. And so thinking about how to create a sense of community and love in that context is very interesting for me. But anyhow, the other thing I was gonna mention is that Nia said we've seen each other for 3 days straight. Then the previous weekend, Dr. Nia actually was generous enough to bless us with the reading of one of her works. We did a recording for the podcast that I'm a producer for, and one of the co-hosts is here with us, Gladira, who happens to be my partner. She's one of the co-hosts, and she happens to be a poet and a writer herself, and is very passionate about giving a platform to other writers, especially poets. And so we held a live reading for local poets. And Dr. Nia really blew the room away with her reading. That'll be on episode 5 when it comes out. But yeah, I absolutely adore any opportunity to give other artists a platform. I also, I've organized silent discos and DJ festivals and other things where I can't even perform because I'm so busy with logistics. I just want other people to perform. I think that is really, really important. And I would actually connect that to KP, AKA Kiki, AKA Kyara, AKA whatever you want, to this very thing where you're giving a platform to other artists and it feels good. It feels like paying it forward. It feels like community creation. So props to you.
Absolutely. I thank you so much for actually bringing that up, actually, when I really appreciate you, because that was really the reason as to why you wanted to do this. I've done a couple events where I call them network mixers. So they're just the opportunity for all of us creators to come out and let it be known what we're doing, what it is that you're doing. We would usually have 7 to 10 vendors, a couple different artists performances, and we'll have some good food, great DJ. I took a couple classes with Dr. Stover, and music is just so imperative for setting the vibe. So, I make sure we have good vibes, great food, and just energy to where it's about highlighting what it is that we're doing and really giving support. The biggest thing that we need as artists is support. As people, we need support. So I find it really like it's one of my passions to bring, and often I'm a creator myself, but I'm not about to put on all my 7 hats because I got a lot. I'm not about to put on all 7 hats to be able to, no. I truly believe that I have been, ordained to be able to bring people together. So I love that role that I play. Hence why I bring this panel together with all of you very dedicated. It's so special to have this discussion because it's really just the discussion, like the behind scenes of conversations that are evidential, but no one really speaks about, and just being able, and then, building off of the curating aspect and just organizing, and then being able to provide space, finding space that is accessible, like literally accessible to our groups, our population, and then being able to share it with others, and then being able to set the intentions to create something that can continue to live beyond you. It's just digging deep to find my neighbor, digging deep within myself to find my neighbor, just builds off of that. So I kind of want to just open up the floor to like any aha moments, anything that any of the panelists would like to, piggyback off of, bring back around. Anything?
I know something that was mentioned earlier that I really appreciated. I think it was you, Sabrina, that you were talking about like the monetary value and just the power of being able to make arrangements and barter with people, but also I'm constantly encouraging folks to charge, right? And to really honor and recognize the value of your art and learning some of the depth of like even just our mindset stuff around money. But I find, especially as around here, like the young artists, and particularly Black artists, that I'm like, no, I will write the invoice for you.
All right now.
Because, enough is enough around, being entertainment and particularly for free. And so just really, really navigating that and naming that more explicitly in a variety of spaces, not to be so consumed with money that you lose sight of the art, but when it comes to that, or when there is space for that, to never be fearful of being expensive. And so I appreciate you acknowledging that or naming that, but also like, the energy, you go for it when the energy really, really pulls you explicitly. So yeah, I just want to bring that up.
Awesome. I love that. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Just because like, the thing is with my events, like I want people to experience something so profound that they're inspired, and that inspiration is able to create an energy amongst the room. And even from like doing my first event back in 2018, there are people that met each other there that still collaborate And like for me, like when you say your network is your network, it's about bringing the right people together so that the bigger picture can be fulfilled, because now we know what we have to offer and we're gonna make the exchange. So it's like, I just curated an art exhibit concert honoring the divine feminine, you know, sharing my story about healing through ancestral practices, really breaking down, like down to the day, like the energy of the day, why I cultivated this event, how I cultivated this event. And so it's like, I can give you something beyond that. Just work with me so I can get there, so we can get what you need. But I always I just pray over my next that people get what they need regardless. And then the people that come and spend the money with the vendors, and they love the vendors and they love the food and they love the artists, like that's what gives me that spirit of abundance to spread around. So if an artist comes and they're like, no, I need this, I'm gonna work with you, let's see what we can do, you know? I'm always gonna offer something, whether it's photo, video, you can bring a guest, whatever it is, you know, like, but I always express my vision to such a degree where it's like, you don't have no ifs, ands, or buts about what I'm cultivating here, because I'm really clear about it. And so like for this event, there was a newsletter, you know, there was an event playbill. Like I wanted the people that collaborated with me on this to have something that like, you will be able to look back in time, like, okay, this was the intention. I actually started as a question based on the theme of the event to express themselves and who they are. And that's something, that level of effort for me is just priceless, because what it cultivated, like people are still hitting me up like, yo, I didn't even know I needed that. And that's what it is about, you know?
It's incredible. And I'll just say that it's so beautiful that you map it out like that. And I want to emphasize that like you and many of you have developed like almost a formula, right? Like there's a way in which if you were to flush out some of the details or the depth of your curation, which I'm sure you have, there's like a legacy then that you're leaving for that next student to keep, you know, keep that alive or to recreate it and all of that. So that's the additional gift, right? It's like you're mapping out a whole framework that is essentially liberating. So word.
It's truly a formula. It truly is. When you said that,
curriculum, right? I mean, I catch it when I hear it. Like you're developing a curriculum that helps, and so I guess what I'm saying is name that even more explicitly. That's exactly what you have, and that's such an offering itself, you know, for that next student or the student right by you who can make it happen too.
Because I think that, and I love that you put it that way, because it makes you think now, because actually this semester for my independent study, I've actually been reading excerpts and books from some of my role models who have, and like I'm literally studying their methods, their mechanisms, their strategies, and I'm seeing how I can take that and like, you know, of course, customize it, KPologize it,
yes, of
you
course,
know,
of
and
course.
add on to it. But nonetheless, we literally are taking, you know, so leaving a legacy of how we go about creating. And I think just when you actually put it in those realms, it's kind of like you have no excuse to be unintentional.
That's right.
And I love that we've been talking about this word intentionality, because it's something that I heavily, like when I was an academic tutor at SUNY Room, and I was consistently telling my students, my tuties, you know, be intentional. Well, I take these classes, and you know, you ask, you know, one of my favorite, but least like questions is when I'm in class or I'm anywhere and someone asks you, why are you here? Why are you doing this? And you don't know, or you don't have a reason. It's like, so whether this goes left or right, it doesn't even matter. Right? So, and it's just not to say that that's an issue. That may work for some people. However, I understand that I have a path, I have a calling, I have a vocation, and I have a mission. So, and it's also important about being able to acknowledge that part.
That's right.
So, saying that intentionality is just so, like Solange has like this little excerpt in the beginning of her song. It's like, do nothing without intention.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
it.
using that sometimes just because, like, no, do nothing without, just your thoughts. Have intentional thoughts.
Yes.
Because that is energy. Just
Exactly.
cultivating,
Yes.
creating a spirit of what you're thinking.
Exactly.
I'm like, no, let's do
Yeah, it's nothing without intentionality, like without intention. So just and then there's a big challenge when we go into intentionality, because some folks may not understand the vision, may not understand the intentionality behind this. Like I remember when I did one of my first events, I wanted to do it 8/28. I know anybody, like people, I feel like people that are historical folks, just how important, like how powerful 8/28 is. And then that's the same day they marched, they did the march at Selma. I can't think of the other one, but it was a couple actually. And when I was trying to figure out my date for my event, I remember wanting to know what are the historical powerful days that, just to build on the intentionality. Like there's an actual reason why we came together. Do you know what happened today, 40 years ago? It's just, it brings something so much refreshing, so much more refreshing to the gathering, I guess. Yeah, I just wanted to speak to intentionality. That's like my favorite word. Yes. Are there any questions? Anybody have any questions for any of the other panelists? Like personally, I do have a question. I have a question for Ben. I kind of wanted to know, Ben, like, can you share a bit about your experience being a hip hop archivist?
Wait a minute. How long is this thing supposed to go? Because that's
just because you know what it is. Folks don't understand, like, okay, we're in the Bronx right now. We're located in the Bronx. And I think that just being able to share with us just a little, like, I don't know, how much time do we have? Like 30 seconds?
my experience. There's so much to say about it, but I'll crystallize just a couple of small things, because I really for real usually give like a whole talk about this. It is very fulfilling to be able to take something that's been a huge core piece of my identity, my life experience, my passion, and that's hip hop music and culture, and have a career where I'm able to not only have some kind of role to play in preserving it or pieces of it, but also educating other people about it. And what I love most about the education process, in my case, is the intergenerational dialogue. I love talking to people that are in my generation, because there's just things that need to go unsaid that you just kind of get. But having to explain, so the freshmen coming in this fall in 3 months were born in 2004.
Wow.
Right? So talking to, talking to young people about something that would seem mundane to folks of a certain age.
Yeah.
How does a record player work?
It's so stressful.
What is it like to have a music collection? Young people think they have music collections, but what you actually have is a series of bookmarks you've created within a streaming music service. That's not really a collection in that way, because just like all of your stuff in your queue on Netflix is the same thing. The minute they take that movie down, they've removed it from your so-called collection. Somebody took it away. Your collection is what you really own and have assembled intentionally yourself, right? So the act of just going to a record store and listening to music to decide what to purchase and take home is a thing. And that can seem really mundane to those of us that have done it our whole lives. That's why one of the things I like to do, there's a building here at Cornell. I started off my career, by the way, as a residence hall director. So I've tried to continue doing a lot of that through being a house fellow, which is a thing they have at Cornell. I take students record shopping down here, downtown in Ithaca. And it's just like, wow. It's like if someone was teaching me how to churn my own butter and shoe a horse, you know, which was probably common knowledge to a lot of people way back when. But it's interesting, and it connects you with those that came before you. And one thing that I really like to impress upon young people is, please strive to care about things that happened before you, musically, culturally, societally.
Yes.
It'll help connect a lot of dots. It'll help understand why the world the way it is. It helps put what you like into context, especially music, but among so many, many other things. But you know, in my case, music. It's really important. And I always find that there's young people who already care about music that came before them. And then there's young people who have never considered what came before them. They don't value it. That's not cool. That's not popping. That's not fashionable. That's old. That's my grandmother's music. Whatever. And you hear stuff like that, and it can get very, very disturbing to me. So that's why I like to have those conversations. Now, look, you just asked me a question that I know I could really, for real, talk about for another hour or two. So I'm just gonna, like I said, I'm gonna cut myself off right now.
Okay.
That's a quick answer to your question.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, because that just adds to why we need to just open up. We got to be open towards new, fresh, and sometimes new and fresh isn't new or fresh. You just need to be open. Just be open. I love that you mentioned that, because I actually just recently bought Teddy Pendergrass Greatest Hits, the vinyl, actually. So I have to actually get a record player. Professor Stova is actually helping me. She's sending me some information on how to purchase a record player. But I literally just bought, and I have it sitting up, like, I'm just waiting to play it. I don't have a turntable yet, but I'm gonna get it. But yes, I love that. I love that point.
I tell students, you can't buy a record and not have a record player. That's like buying like a cup of yogurt and never having a spoon. And I got a spoon, but I got this yogurt. You know, I don't know.
But like, to add on, like, I just bought a record player last year. Like, that's the first time I got it, and I just bought some records. And like you said, it's a total different experience. Like, I was listening to Kendrick Lamar, Good Kid, Mad City, J. Cole, Forest Hill Drive. I was listening to those on Spotify for years now, years. And then I finally got the vinyls for both of those albums, played it on the turntables, and then it's just like this specific things that you hear and that you experience, where it's just like, wow, like this, I feel like it's just a whole new thing. Like, another album I bought was Wu-Tang's, their first album, like Welcome to the 36 Chambers. And oh man, like when you hear it in like a record player, what's the song I'm thinking of? Oh, Protect Your Neck. Protect Your Neck. When I first heard that on the record player, and you can hear the piano that you couldn't hear when you're playing it on Spotify. And the piano goes dum 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 dum, and it's like that new experience. It made me look at Wu-Tang Clan differently. Because like, I always love Wu-Tang Clan. I always love Wu-Tang Clan, but hearing it in like that pure form and hearing all that instruments, it was like, wow, this is just a whole new experience, just a whole new adoration for the music.
It's a beautiful.
I have a question, if I could just briefly ask, relating to something I was saying about artists who keep their stuff to themselves versus those that share. How do we get Dr. Stover to DJ publicly? Because
Right.
I've been trying to do it for over a half decade at least. I've been trying to get her to come out and share this vast record collection that she has. She's a bedroom DJ, that's all, right?
Yes. When I tell you, it's amazing. Like often okay, so many of her exit tickets or even opening tickets was just listen to this piece. How does it make you feel? What does it do? What is it what resonates with you? What references what? What's the historical context? What's the cultural context? And honestly, I always like, if there are any Binghamton University students here, please take Black Women Creativity. Make sure you take Black Women Creativity, because that class really helped me as a writer to be able to understand what it is that critiques are paying attention to be able to really inspire the art, but really, like, how you say it, advanced art, because I already saw that critique and I'm making sure that this piece doesn't even have that type of critique, you know, that type of thing. So Dr. Stover, thank you, Professor Stover, thank you for the work that you do. You deserve your flowers. But if there is any last remarks, just to wrap it up, I know we started a little late, but we are also running with time. I'm not sure what the chat, what's going on with the chat. Is there any questions?
There are not. Hey, I want
okay,
to tell you guys about grants, because you need money to
Yes,
do
we
all these
do.
amazing ideas that you have. So we can officially end this, and any artists who want to stick around and have me talk about grants can stick around. But otherwise, to the audience, thank you so much for being here. Oh, Ben, I sent you an email about our grants, like about 10 minutes ago.
Oh,
So,
cool. I haven't checked my email in the last,
10
20
minutes,
minutes
I know,
or so.
right?
So I will
for
check
you,
it out.
For you people who aren't in Tompkins County, every county in the state has a chunk of money from New York State Council on the Arts. I administer that chunk for Tompkins County, but the Bronx Council on the Arts administers it. And there's even Binghamton or Broome County grants are actually administered by the Earlsville Opera House. I have no idea where that is, Earlsville, New York. But it's called, New York State Council on the Arts calls the grants statewide community re-grants, or SCR, and they're for arts events, period, in different communities. And if you have any questions about who to talk to about who administers it in your county, then let me know. And if you're in Tompkins County, artspartner.org grant page. We have 6 grants. We gave out $400,000 last year in grants. It's not our money. Some of the money is from the state, some from the county, some from the community foundation, some from a private foundation, and the upcoming creative recovery grant is from the community foundation and donations. So yeah, there's some, it's not this mass, like our grants average like $1,200. It's not enough, but I'm trying to get more. So if you want to talk about grants for events that you want to do in the Bronx, I can hook you up.
Absolutely. As you were giving that information, it was so many thoughts going through my mind. So I will definitely stay in contact with you, Robin.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Sabrina and Michael and I might have some ideas.
Every county has 3 different grants. One of them is for just general arts events. It's an arts event. The second one is called the artist tier. And that's for artists who want to work, who want to create new work, but really share it in a really powerful, significant way with a community of their choosing.
Yes.
And there's also an arts education grant. And that's if you want to work in the schools, do an artist residency in the schools, or in an after-school program. Some counties also say that the arts education grant can be for seniors. In Tompkins County, we just do it K through 12. But yeah, there's some money there. That's a fun part of my job, right? Like helping people apply for money and then giving it to them.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
It's actually a really fun job. I would love to do that. Right.
But otherwise, if any, we'll say goodnight. Oh, and Jennifer wrote, don't forget about Humanities New York. New York, oh, here's a really good source. New York State Council on the Arts. New York State Council on the Arts is generally about funding not-for-profits, but NYFA, New York Foundation for the Arts, is generally about funding individuals. And NYFA, nyfa.org, has a great database of opportunities. I mean, not just grant opportunities, but job opportunities and artist opportunities. And that database is called NYFA Source. And it's a really good searchable database. Yeah, Jennifer put it in, it's nyfa.org. But yeah, I'm more proficient in grants in Tompkins County than I am in grants statewide. But if anyone has any grant questions, they can email me.
Awesome. I will be emailing you, Robin.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking this moment with us this evening and listening out to our digging deep within myself to find my neighbor, a discussion about individual creativity and community. Thank you. I'm looking forward to staying connected to everyone in this panelist, everyone in the chat. Any way that we can stay connected, please do. Feel free to reach out. I will be reaching out to you, Ben, Dr. Nia, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
No, let's
Thank
get
you.
coffee sometime, everybody.
Let's do it.
All right.
When
Have
you
a
come
good
to the
night.
city, we have to all link up. Bye.
Let's go. Let's do it. Bye-bye.